The sun peeked through the gray clouds as the black limousine rolled up to the towering iron gates of the Ashford estate. Inside the car, a teenage girl sat nervously, clutching her worn backpack. Her eyes scanned the grand mansion beyond the gates. She had never been here before. Not once had she set foot on this land. Yet today she was told she must attend the will reading of a woman she barely knew. Her late grandmother, Eleanor Ashford. The chauffeur opened the door for her. As she stepped out, the chill in the air made her shiver. It wasn't just the cold, it was the feeling of being watched. As she walked up the long stone path, the imposing front doors of the mansion creaked open. Inside, the room was already filled with people, elegant, well-dressed, and most of them white. They all turned to stare. Whispers started immediately. "Who is she? Why is she here?" That must be the girl Eleanor talked about in her final days. Their eyes were cold, their stares sharp like knives. She tried not to let it show, but every step she took felt heavier than the last. At the front of the room, a man in a gray suit cleared his throat. "We'll begin shortly," he said. "Please, everyone take a seat." She found herself a seat at the edge of the room, away from the sneering faces. The lawyer opened a thick leather folder and began to speak. "This is the last will and testament of Eleanor Ashford." The lawyer's voice echoed across the room, crisp and emotionless. "To my beloved children and grandchildren, I thank you for coming. But you should know, this will may not be what you expect." The room stiffened. Some relatives exchanged nervous glances. One man scoffed under his breath. "To my eldest son, Charles, I leave the summer house in Maine, on the condition that he pays off his gambling debts within 6 months. If not, the house will go to charity." Charles's face turned red with embarrassment. A woman nearby gasped. "To my daughter Elaine, I leave my collection of pearls, but only the imitation set. The real ones have already been sold to fund scholarships for girls from underprivileged backgrounds." Elaine's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth as if to protest, but no sound came out. Then the lawyer paused. Everyone leaned forward. "And finally," he said slowly, "to my granddaughter whom I met only once, but who showed me more warmth in a single afternoon than most of my family has in a lifetime." The room went dead silent. All eyes turned to the girl in the corner. The lawyer's voice dropped to a whisper, but every word cut like thunder. "To her I leave the Ashford estate, everything." Gasps exploded around the room. A glass shattered somewhere. "That's absurd," someone yelled. "She's not even one of us. This must be some kind of joke." The girl sat frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. For a moment, she wasn't sure if she'd heard it right, but the lawyer nodded solemnly. "Yes, it's all hers, the house, the assets, the stocks, the land, everything Eleanor owned." "This isn't over," Charles barked, standing up. "We'll contest this." But the girl said nothing. She simply looked around the room, at the faces twisted in anger, greed, and disbelief. And deep down, a fire began to flicker in her chest. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stood up slowly, her chair creaking against the marble floor. Every gaze in the room followed her, some burning with rage, others with envy. She cleared her throat and said, voice calm but firm, "I didn't ask for any of this. I just came to pay my respects." Someone scoffed. "Spare us the act. You knew exactly what you were doing." But she looked at them, her eyes steady. "I met her once. She was kind. She listened to me when no one else ever had. That afternoon changed my life. I didn't know it would change hers, too." Silence. Uncomfortable. Heavy. Then an older woman snapped, her voice bitter. "So what now? You expect us to just hand everything over to a stranger?" The lawyer spoke again, firm as stone. "This is a legal will, signed, witnessed, notarized. There's no contesting it without clear evidence of fraud. which there is none. A man muttered, "She probably tricked the old lady," played the innocent card. The girl turned to face him directly. "Is that what you think? That a conversation, a cup of tea, and a little kindness was manipulation?" No one answered. She stepped forward, her voice stronger now. "You don't even realize how little it took to earn her trust. That's how lonely she must have been." That struck something. Even those most bitter looked away. The lawyer closed the folder with a soft snap. "There will be time to go over the details. For now, the estate is hers, as per Eleanor's final wish." The girl walked out of the room, not looking back. Behind her, the family broke into whispers and murmurs. But she wasn't listening anymore. Outside, the air was fresh, cold but honest. She had no idea what came next. But something told her it was finally her time. The mansion was silent that evening. Shadows stretched across the high ceilings, and the portraits of ancestors seemed to watch her every move. She wandered room by room, unfamiliar with the space that was now legally hers. Dust lay thick on certain books, drawers unopened for decades. But in Eleanor's study, something caught her eye. A faded photograph tucked inside a leather journal. It showed a young Eleanor standing beside a black woman who looked just like her mother. Her breath caught. She flipped through the journal. The entries were dated from the 1980s. "I met Rosa again today. She brings light into this cold house. My family would never approve, but I no longer care." Page after page, Eleanor poured her heart into words. Forbidden love, betrayal, heartbreak. But one line stood out. "If I could do it over, I would choose her. Every time." Her hands trembled. So it was true. This wasn't charity. This wasn't guilt. It was legacy. A legacy denied, buried, and now finally reclaimed. Downstairs, she heard a knock on the door. She opened it to find the same cousin who had called her a nobody. He looked uneasy. "Look, I didn't know. None of us did." She said nothing. He handed her an old photograph. Eleanor, Rosa, and a baby. Her. He sighed. She kept it hidden, but she never let it go. The girl held the photo close, her voice barely a whisper. "Neither will I." A week later, the family gathered again, this time for a memorial. The air was thick with forced smiles and whispers, people pretending to mourn a woman they had long abandoned emotionally. She stood by the grand piano in a black dress that once belonged to Eleanor. Silence fell as she stepped forward. Everyone turned. "Thank you all for coming," she began, voice steady. "I know many of you have questions about me, about her." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but she continued. "The truth is, Eleanor wasn't just a kind stranger. She was my grandmother." A collective gasp swept through the room. "She loved my mother, Rosa, but her family wouldn't allow it. They forced them apart." Her voice broke slightly, but she regained composure. She carried that pain her whole life, and in her final act, she chose to set things right. One aunt stood up angrily. "That's ridiculous. Eleanor would never—" She held up the photo, the one with the baby. Her. The room fell silent again. This house, this inheritance, it's not a reward. It's a responsibility. Her eyes scanned the faces, some ashamed, some still in denial. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to rebuild what was broken." Slowly, she placed the photograph on the mantel, then turned back. "But make no mistake, this legacy is mine now, and I will protect it." As she walked away from the crowd, back straight, head high, something had shifted, not just in the room, in the bloodline. As the guests began to leave, whispering among themselves, one figure stayed behind. An older man, silent through the entire ceremony. He stepped closer, eyes sunken, hands trembling. "I knew Rosa," he said quietly. "I was her brother." She froze. Her breath caught. I was young. I was scared. When the family sent her away, I didn't fight it. I should have. A long pause. Then he reached into his coat pocket and handed her a letter. Yellowed with age, sealed with wax. Eleanor wrote this the night before she passed. She asked me to give it to you, when the time was right. Her hands trembled as she took it. She opened the letter. Words in flowing cursive, full of sorrow, full of hope. To my dearest granddaughter, forgive me for the years we lost. But know this, you were never unwanted. You were my greatest secret, and now you are my greatest legacy. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but her spine straightened. She folded the letter carefully, holding it close to her chest. Thank you, she said to the man. Maybe we can start again. All of us. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days. A new chapter was beginning, one built on truth, on courage, on love long denied but never destroyed.